Hello, thank you for taking a moment to check out this video and look at the needs of the Nepali people, and especially the children and families there in Nepal, and how we as Christians can reach out to them and help them to be able to care for their own people. My name is Rebecca Moore, and I'm a social worker in South Carolina, specializing in adoption and foster care. My husband, Dr. Jeffrey Moore, is a professor at Anderson University in the business department.
We'd like to give you a little overview of Nepal, and as you see on the map, it is between India and China, and this is a country with 30 million citizens, of which 18 million are working. The average age of men is 65 and of women 68. There's one doctor for every 5,000 people. Their capital city is Kathmandu with 1 million people, and about 83% of people live in the village, so it's a very rural country. The GDP of the country is 41 billion, which is the equivalent of 6 months of revenues of Amazon. And that translates into $1,300 per person per year, which is equal to the wealth of Haiti. So Haiti being the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, Nepal is on the same level. Employment, mostly agriculture, and there's a high unemployment rate of 46%. And over 40% of the population is under the poverty line.
The Himalayas stretch across Nepal 1,500 miles. They cover 75% of the country. These beautiful mountains include 8 of the 10 largest mountains in the world. They are beautiful, and they bring a lot of tourist industry into Nepal. However, they also make life difficult. Almost everyone lives on the side of a mountain, and life can be very difficult when you're trying to farm in these kind of conditions.
Now, the difficulty and the curse of Nepal is really human trafficking, and this is a major issue, and you see that in 1990 girls in particular were trafficked at a rate of about 3,000 to 5,000 a year, and unfortunately in 2010 that is escalated to 12,000 to 20,000 a year, and these are typically girls between the age of 10 and 20, and we find that there is a focus of the trafficking for forced labor or domestic servitude, or the sex industry or brothels, and these are the main drivers. But we find also, sadly, that there are soft trafficking and hard trafficking, the difference being where the young girls are in soft trafficking, willingly given up by their families, or hard trafficking when they're deceived by promises of marriage or of work overseas, deceived and then enslaved or trafficked. The destination countries mostly are India and Gulf countries. And the most vulnerable are those who are in a low social status. And so we see really a very big problem in these children and the crises that they are facing.
Life in Nepal has really 2 different facets. One is in the city and the other in the rural areas. Many people came to Kathmandu during the 10 years of civil war for the protection afforded by being in the capital where the king was. Now people come for employment. Unfortunately, many of these people are uneducated, unskilled, and they end up living in slums like those you see in the upper left picture there. They don't have the ability to really make enough money to survive in the city, but they're even there trying to support their families in the countryside, because in the rural areas there are no income sources. There are few roads, there are no medical facilities. The harsh landscape makes farming very difficult. You can see on the lower right picture there is a house there right on the edge of the cliff, and terraces that they've carved out of the mountain. These small plots are sometimes less than 5 feet wide. It's really almost impossible to grow enough to feed your family in these conditions.
We have a mandate, we have a goal, and we have a plan that we would like to share with you. The overarching idea is that every child deserves a family. The first mandate that we're given is really twofold, and the first part is that we have a duty and obligation to care for the orphan. In James 1:27, we find that religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And the main idea is that Psalm 68:6 says that God puts the lonely in families. He doesn't put the lonely in institutions or in different places. He has created the family really to be the place where we develop and grow. The second mandate is part of who God created us to be, with family, but also with responsibility for work. And we define our faith by working with excellence. Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. And really this is coming from Genesis, where God blessed Adam and Eve and gave them 2 commandments, one to multiply, and the second is to fill the earth and subdue it. And so this is really a call that we need to take seriously, work and family.
Our goal is to empower the local church to care for families in their community. We want to bring a vision for healthy families and family-based care for children in need. We want to train Nepalis to provide for the needs of their community, train them in social services, in business, parenting, everything they need to be able to create healthy families in their community. We want to give the tools and technology to allow families to be financially sound, providing food, shelter, education, and all the necessities that their children need.
The answer came by going to Nepal and working with 2 groups of pastors. The first one is with a workshop with 40 community leaders from 20 non-denominational churches in Kathmandu. The second was a workshop with 33 pastors from 16 different mountain churches, and this was in the rural area. We drove about 14 hours to get to that location and have the workshop. One of the things that was impressing upon us is the rapid growth of the church. As the church serves the poor and the lowest of society, we're finding there is great renewal in the church. And within 7 years, 19 churches were developed in this area with 3,000 believers added. It was interesting that on the wall of the church on the front, they had one passage that they really focused on, Matthew 16:18. And this is where Christ makes the statement to Peter about the fact that he recognized that he was the Son of God, and that this was the cornerstone, and that even the gates of hell would not prevail against that statement, against the church. The community leaders listed a number of companies that were owned and operated by the church members or leaders. Many different companies are represented, from art type of companies with handicraft to bicycle mechanic to clothing to computer to education, food, home and garden, agriculture, communication, personal care, real estate and construction of homes, and also travel. All of these show the diversity at a small business level of how many companies there are in Kathmandu. The best companies that the pastors and community leaders mentioned to start in Kathmandu are highlighted there in orange. Handicraft business, and that's creating either art that is usable, like bags and purses, to other just artistic things that are displayed in the home or sold to tourists. We have the tailoring, which is basically fixing clothes and making new clothes. Push cart business. This is a business where someone goes door to door with vegetables, selling their vegetables, much like we had in earlier years of milk delivery business. Electronics shop with different electronic goods being sold there, and of course the farming, which is a key component of agricultural life in Nepal. However, there's a number of other businesses that were thought to be really the best businesses there, and most of them are products and not services due to the low economic condition of Nepalese. Community leaders mentioned a number of key barriers of doing business in Kathmandu. There are 4 different categorization of these problems or crises. The first one is crisis in HR, with mostly lack of knowledge or skill training in businesses there. Another big barrier is the financial component, where there's a lack of investment or customers not paying back their debt and increasing accounts receivable, therefore hurting cash flow of the company, and not having loans. And these are different barriers in the financial section. However, many comments on the marketing side were made by the community leaders that businesses lack ideas, they lack advertising or effective advertising. A surprising one was the lack of good relations with the customer, and here this is something to study on how there are cultural differences and what is the role of a business owner versus a customer, and how that works out in their very high caste environment. And so that's something to study. Also, other problems with quality in products or services, many due to environmental factors that they don't control, like electricity being cut off, or lack of quality raw materials or poor infrastructure, leaving it very difficult to get merchandise from one place to another. Another comment that leaders had were about the struggles in business of these community business owners. I grouped these into 3 different categories, with health being physical, and then 3 categories being the ethical component, one of deception, lying, cheating, narrow-mindedness, fear with discrimination and unhealthy environment or oppression, self-centeredness from pride perspective or aggressiveness. This is having to do with a lack of customer service, corruption and intoxication. Some of the comments were made about people getting drunk and abusing their power. And so it's very interesting that most of the comments had to do with internal motivation and ethics, instead of these other struggles that are health related and external.
The pastors were asked to come into focus groups and answer some questions that had to do with the family and the role of the family in their society and how they saw that as being a positive or a negative. The first question we asked was, what do children need to be healthy? We were trying to get a picture of what does a healthy family mean in their society? What does it mean to them? The pastors felt that there were certain needs that families had to provide for children in order for them to be healthy. One would be education, access to an education. Another, basic needs, food, shelter. A third would be health, so that's both nutrition and access to health care when needed. And then there was a whole category that were more about the relationships within the family, that the family would be loving, that there would be a lack of conflict in the family, that it would be a place of peace, that the parents would be good parents who are parenting well, that they would give guidance and discipline to the child that was appropriate, that the child would be able to have access to a spiritual education through the church, and that their peer relationships would be good. The second question we asked were, what were barriers that the family might have to having these needs met to be healthy? Their answers can be broken into really two categories here, one being physical needs and the other being relational. So they felt that some things that came into the way of families being healthy would be poverty, a lack of literacy on the part of the parents, malnutrition that children suffer, natural disasters that may affect the family's ability to meet the child's needs, and healthcare issues either by the parent or the child that would cause them not to have their needs met. The second category are relational needs. So they felt that bad peer relations could get in the way of a family's health, also poor values in the family or not having values taught in the family. Discrimination was another category that they gave. And they're talking here about the caste system and about different ethnic groups that are discriminated against in education, in jobs, in the amount of land that they have. Another category was violence in the family, and then orphans, children who don't have anyone to care for them. They also felt that a lack of skill in parenting would cause the family not to be healthy. The third and last question that we asked in this part of the program was the role of the church in meeting the child's needs. We wanted to see what the pastors felt the role of the church was in the family. What would they be willing to involve the church in if we were developing a program like this? Their responses included a spiritual education, teaching values, disciplining and counseling children and families, providing financial help, helping to develop identity of the family and identity of the child as a Christian, caring for them and showing love, prayer, family support and working with the family when there was a problem, helping the family to have healthy relationships, encouragement of parents and children, and reconciliation when there were issues that came up that were dividing the family. While in Nepal, we also visited a number of NGOs working with families and gathered information from them about their programs, the successes and challenges that they had had. We met with the Department of Social Welfare and learned about the process for becoming licensed in Nepal. It's important when working with children in foster care that you would work through the government, that everything would be seen as transparent, legal, and in the best interest of the child. From our research, several projects seemed most needed. First of all, the one which the pastors indicated was really important to them was education. In the city, the pastors wanted training in practical church leadership. They wanted to know how to care for their congregations and lead their churches. The rural pastors identified the need for a school as their top priority. They want a private Christian school to educate the children in their community. The second project would be business development. Poverty is the main problem in Nepal and what most often leads to children who are homeless or without families. Helping Christians provide for their families and their churches by giving business knowledge will help the entire population of the community to be lifted out of this cycle of poverty. The pastors indicated that a revolving loan in the church would help church members to be able to start small businesses and provide for their families. The third project is family strengthening and foster care. This would mean training local Nepalis to assess and monitor families at risk. They would then help those families to meet their basic needs when needed. This would also mean providing training and education for kinship and foster care to be provided when necessary. The pastors indicated that education for parenting, child development, health, the importance of education, the importance of female children, all of these things would be helpful in keeping families healthy and strong in their communities. One way that you could help would to be with the education project. There are two parts to this. Firstly, the pastors had asked for a leadership seminar for pastors and church leaders. They want to have help shepherding their flock. They want to have help with how do you disciple people? How do you work with church discipline? They want to have help with how to make programs for the family and deal with finances. What are the roles of the family in the church, and how can they help their congregations to be better parents, better husbands, better wives? The second part of this is to develop a Christian school. The pastors in the village all indicated that this was the most important thing to them, was a school that would provide education for their children. So we're going to be looking at a business plan for that. How can it be developed, what the needs would be, what the finances would be, everything from beginning to end of how to develop a school for the people in these villages.
The second project that you can participate in is the small business development, or to join Team B. Here we have three different components of our team projects. The first one is to develop 5 business templates, and these are the ones that from the research that we found to be the most the best businesses that the community leaders said would be helpful and effective in their community. These we want to do templates that are extremely simple for a micro business, and we want to put these templates not only creating YouTube videos that will be translated in Nepali, but also putting packets together so that community leaders, elders, and deacons can help members of their church community to either start a small business like this based on some of the guidelines, or improve the business of their constituents in order to help them raise funds to support these children in crisis in their community. The second part of the project is to developing a business seminar, and this would be the ABCs of owning and growing your company. This would be open to the community in general, focusing on the basics of accounting, the look at quality control and developing excellence in your product service, marketing, and leadership in your company. And again, what we would want to do is create short YouTube videos for each of these components, and a small business toolkit or booklet that could be published in Nepali for the use of the church members. And finally, we're looking to collect another $2,500 for their revolving loan bank for their startups internally. Currently, they already have $2,500 that they are using in a revolving loan fund to help people start their businesses and are paid back. And so this is already working and a positive part of the community development.
The third project is the Family Strengthening and Foster Care Program. The first thing that needs to be done here is to develop the legal framework. That would mean either finding a partner to work with or developing a nonprofit that would be able to go into Nepal as an international NGO and become licensed with the government to provide services. The second part is to develop materials for parenting of children. This would include things that the pastors have indicated are needed educational pieces, such as child development, health, sanitation, parenting, and then foster care specific materials. This might not be developing something from the bottom, from the get-go, but taking something that we know works, that's already been done, and is good biblical material, and adapting that so it can be used by people who aren't literate, who aren't used to the same kind of learning that we are here in the States. Another part of this would be raising the funds for the monthly care expenses of 10 children to be in foster care. And this would be something that we would use to start up working with these 10 kids, and then eventually the churches would be able to take this over and the families would be able to take it over as their businesses become more profitable, and we'd be able to move it to working with more and more children.
So what's the plan? And this is where you can get involved, and you see at the bottom of the page an email with my email address. If you're interested in participating, you're more than welcome to send me an email and designate which team you would like to participate in. The first team is an educational team with organizing a leadership seminar for pastors and church leaders. The second one, part of that team, also would look at developing a business plan for a small private Christian school. The second team, Team B, would be involved in small business development activities. The first of which is to develop 5 different business templates that would be available to Christian members in the church to develop on their own, and to develop a family business that they could support their families and the local church. Also, here we would work on developing different seminars, so that when a team would go over, we could conduct seminars to train people how to run businesses and develop their business. And finally, the last part of this team would look at a revolving loan fund for use by the church in helping with small loans to get the businesses started. And finally, Team C is looking at the legal framework for foster care in Nepal. There is no foster care currently, but we met with a number of NGOs and also government workers, and there's a great need and willingness to work on this project. Also, in this team, we want to develop biblical materials for the care of children and parenting principles, and this would be extremely helpful if current foster parents in the church would participate in helping develop these materials. Also, seminars could be taught on these different family issues that would be given in Nepal. Also, what we would look to do is to do a project, kind of a kickoff project to prove the viability of the foster care with 10 children. And so creating the system for care of 10 children. And we'll need some funds for that component. And with the idea of having a 2-year time frame where the church members, after starting their businesses and developing their businesses, could take over that support after 2 years. We thank you for investing your time and looking at these materials, and we just pray and encourage you to get involved as God leads you in that direction. Thank you.